Welcome everyone. In this video, let's look into our day 5 of the professional course. This day 5 course is divided into 8 different sections. That will be looking into section 1, which is Introduction to Real-Time Rendering and Lighting. See, in your day 1 of the foundation course, we would have talked about your quick rendering process, right? Where I would have addressed a handful of settings using which you can quickly take a decent rendering output for your prospects, right? And during the time itself, you would have wondered, what about the actual detailed renders? Right? What if I want to control the micros of the render settings or the environment or lighting based on the requirement? That is exactly what your real-time rendering is going to be. So always remember, if you want to take a quick render for your prospects or share some quick renders within your organization, I would recommend you to go for the quick render which was addressed in day 1 of the foundation course. But if you are taking the renders for your final presentation, I would always recommend you to please go for real-time rendering. So in order to access that, in your main modeling window, the top here you have something called image/video, right? Shortcut is Alt+0. Click it, and this will open up your rendering window here. And I'm sure that you're already aware of the camera navigation for the rendering window, right? W, S, A, D, Q, and E in your keyboard to move your camera forward, backward, left, right, above, and below. Okay, and in your mouse it's your left click to orbit and your right click is to pan, using which you can set your viewport, control the camera settings, adjust the resolution, aspect ratio, and finally save your viewport according to your requirement. We already talked in detail about this in your day 1 of the foundation course when addressing your quick rendering, right? But if you like to access your real-time rendering, for that on the left tab here, just scroll down and there you will see 2 tabs here. One is called custom lighting and another one is called real-time rendering. In this, make sure you select your real-time rendering tab, not your custom lighting. Okay, both the renderings here are similar in some way, but when it comes to real-time rendering, one of the greatest advantages is your real-time rendering preview. Yes, before taking up the preview while you are editing the settings, environment or so, you can precisely look at the preview on the top right of the screen within your real-time rendering. Only for that major advantage, I would always recommend you to go for your real-time rendering tab. Even if you are in custom lighting, make sure you click on this real-time rendering tab and this will open up the small tab here named Add to, correct? Click it, and now the tool will ask you to select a rendering template. And out of all this template, if you're planning to take a proper daytime render, I would recommend you to either go for indoor daytime or daytime. If you're planning to take a nighttime render or an evening time render, then I would recommend you to go for indoor nighttime or nighttime. You could also explore ultra fast daylight or ultra fast nightlight, but based on my personal experience, I generally don't recommend these 2 settings. It's better that you select these 2 for daytime and these 2 for nighttime. In my case here, I'm selecting it as daytime. Once that is selected, just click on confirm. And this will open up your real-time rendering window where you can take a complete detailed photorealistic rendering based on your requirement. First, let's just focus on your camera navigation, because the camera navigation here is exactly similar to your main rendering window, where if you press your left click, you will be able to orbit your camera. Right click is to pan your camera. W is to move forward. S is to move backward. A to move your camera to the left. D to move your camera to the right. Q is to move above and E is to move below. Same camera navigation as in your main rendering and modeling window. So now that being addressed, now let's just focus on the UI, the user interface of your real-time rendering. So on top of your real-time rendering window here, you have your menu bar. This menu bar will have the save option, which is nothing but in your real-time rendering window, you can make some edits to your components in terms of finishes, lighting, settings, and so. And if you like to exit this real-time rendering window, on the top right here, you have an X icon, right? If you click it, it will automatically save and exit your real-time rendering window. But before that, just on a safety basis, you could also manually save all the edit which you did in your real-time rendering using the save option. Shortcut is Ctrl+S. Right next to this is your reset template button. If you like to reset all the edit which you did, and if you want it like how the default template was, then you can just click on this button, all the editing what you did in the specific template will be reset. Then you can precisely start editing your real-time rendering from the scratch too. Okay, and then you have your undo and redo, Control Z and Control Y. Then you have your clear option. Then comes in your material brush, shortcut is yum, and if the material brush option is provided, which means we should be able to edit your material and copy it from one surface to another surface. Anyways, we'll be talking detail about it in our further sessions. And right side to that, you have your small preview window, which is nothing but this one on the top right. Okay, so like I said, this preview window is one of the greatest advantage of your real-time rendering window. This will show you how your actual render would look in your final output. So here, can you see here, as I move my camera, as I tilt my camera, not only that, as I make any changes to the finishers, components also, it will precisely be updated in the preview here. And if you would like to enlarge this preview here for this entire screen, then on top right of this preview, can you see there is something called switch to full screen preview, right? Click it, and now can you see here, the preview window is applied for the entire screen. So this way you can avoid n number of sample renders in your final rendering process, because you can literally see the preview, and finally if you are okay with this preview, then you can proceed with your renders. And if you like to make this preview to a smaller window, then click on the switch to small screen preview. It will be on the top right. In some cases you might work on dual monitor setup. In those kinds of scenario, you have a specific option here named as split screen preview, which means if you click it, the real-time rendering will open here as a separate tab, which you can add it to your secondary monitor. So your primary monitor will have your complete real-time rendering window, and your secondary monitor will act as a preview window. So that is also feasible. Or if you like to go back to how it was before, then click on this merge with your page, and this will again come back to the point. Or if you don't want to look at the preview, then you can even toggle it off too. So this is what your preview window is, and now we can control its viewability. Apart from your preview window, on the right hand side here, you have your settings tab. The settings tab will have your environmental settings, camera settings, and your effect settings. We'll be talking detail about this in our further sessions. On the left hand side here, you have three important tabs. One is your lighting tab, which will have some list of design and ambient lightings which you could use in your project. Then you have your environmental tab, which will carry all the important environmental HDRI images. Yes, in your real-time rendering, you have a detailed list of HDRI image for your outdoors, which you can select from. And the last tab in this vertical part is your material. This will open up your material tab, using which you can edit or replace any material in your model. Don't worry, we'll also be talking in detail about this in our further sessions. And apart from that, you can also shift between your 2D and 3D viewport. Right now we are in the 3D perspective view here. If you want, you can go for your aerial view or your floor plan or your ceiling plan view too, depending on your workability requirement. So this is what the user interface of your real-time rendering will be. So now let's just focus on the four major elements which contributes to the realism of a render. In that, the first element is your lighting, second element is your environment, third element is your material, and the fourth element is your render settings. Render settings include your environment, camera, post-production, all these together forms your fourth element. So if you are able to precisely succeed in all these four elements for any renders, you will be able to easily generate a photorealistic output for your project. In today's session, we'll be talking about your element 1, which is your lighting. And when it comes to lighting in your real-time rendering, like I said, on the first tab here, you have lighting. Click it, and this will open up different types of lighting which you could use in your project. But before that, you would have noticed by this point, the lightings in this project is automatically added, right? But we just now got inside the real-time rendering of this project, correct? We didn't even add a single lighting yet. But if you notice, the lighting is professionally added for this entire atmosphere, not only for this space here. For this entire project, you will notice the lighting is automatically added, right? Yes, the default lighting setup is automatically taken care by the template what you selected. You remember before entering your real-time rendering window, you would have selected that daytime template, right? the template what you select will automatically add your base lighting for your entire project. That is the reason why the primitive render output what you get in your real-time rendering itself looks professional. Not only that, the template can even detect your design lightings, that is the lightings which are present in your designs, something like your spotlight, downlight, track light or so, and it will automatically add appropriate lightings at its base. Can you see here? In my design at the false ceiling there is a curb lighting here. It has precisely added an IES lighting just underneath the curb light. Same scenario for this one too. There is a pendant lighting here. It has precisely added a rectangle lighting for that pendant light. For this open corner unit, I've added spot lighting where the tool has detected it and it has precisely added the spot lighting for those spaces. So the template itself will literally do majority of the lighting work in your scene. As a designer, you could just focus on enhancing it and taking it for the final renders. So that way, when it comes to enhancing the existing lighting, in your lighting tab, you have different types of lightings here. And if you like to add any lighting in addition to what was added by the template here, all you can do is just click it and place it in your project. If you do it in 3D, you might not precisely have the control on the position. In those cases, I would recommend you to go to your plan view. And now if you select any lighting, you will be able to precisely apply it to your required position. And in your plan view, you would have noticed there are already so many yellow rectangles and circles, right? All those are the default lightings which are automatically added by the template. Okay, so that way we newly added a rectangle lighting here. And as soon as you add a rectangle lighting, if you select it, on the right hand side, it will show you its properties or parameter. Yes, here each and every lighting has a certain property or a parameter using which you can control the nature of the lighting. Okay. In this, for your rectangle lighting or circular lighting, these two are commonly used as ambient lighting. What are ambient lightings? The lightings which are used to enhance the ambience of a space. Let's just say that your room or your space looks dark. In those cases, professionals will generally add an ambient lighting or rectangle lighting behind the camera or near your ceiling or so that it will brighten up your space. It will enhance the ambience of the space. So that's why it is called as ambient lighting. And your rectangle and circular are commonly used ambient lighting for your projects. So that way, if I just select the rectangle lighting on the right hand side, it will show you different properties of a rectangle lighting. That the first property here is your status. Status is nothing but if it is toggled on, you will see the impact of this lighting in your project. I'll just show you an example in this preview window. Can you see here? The rectangle light has created a lighting on the space. If you toggle it off, it is like turning off the light. We are still not deleting it, we are just turning off the light. That way the impact of that light won't be there in your scene. It looks like as if you deleted the light, but still we haven't deleted it, we have just toggled it off. Okay, so this is what the status is. This is one of the common property for any lighting here using which you can turn on or turn off. If it is turned on, the specific light will appear in yellow. If it is turned off, it will look gray, not only in your 3D view, even in your floor plan view. Can you see here? The second property here is your double-sided. See, double-sided is one of the innate property of any rectangle lighting, regardless of any rendering engine you use. Okay, it is nothing but if you take any rectangle lighting in general, it will only emit light on one side, correct? On most cases, it will be towards downside, or if you rotate it, it will be facing on a specific direction, but it will always be focusing on one direction. What if I want this to radiate light on both the sides, not only downwards but also upwards? That is what this double-sided is. Just using a single toggle, you can see another arrow mark is added, and now can you see the impact of this is also seen above the lighting and below the lighting too, right? So it is like now both the surfaces emitting light. Okay, if you toggle it off, you could see that the ceiling will be completely dark because the lighting is emitted only from the bottom side. If you toggle it on, it will be emitted on both the sides. That is what this double-sided is. As simple as that. The third property here is your lighting color. This is a common property for any lighting here, using which you can control the color of a lighting. And when it comes to changing a color, you can do it in two ways for any lighting. One is changing the color temperature of a light. Can you see here right now it is in neutral white. If you want, you can make it as cooler white. If you want, you can make it as warmer white. Can you see how the tone is changing? You can control it using the slider, or if you want to precisely control using the Kelvin temperature, that is also feasible. Can you see here? So if I want this to be about 3000 degree Kelvin and make it warmer, I could go for it. Or if I want it cooler, I could even go for 8000 Kelvin. So this way I should be able to control the color temperature of the lighting either using slider or using the numeric value. But what if I have some weird color requirements, something like pink, green, violet also? That is not feasible using color temperature here, right? This is where your second type of lighting color comes in, which is your color tab. So like I said, in default it will be color temperature, which is this tab. If you want, you can just click on this color tab here, and now this will open up your swatch. Click on the swatch and you can just select any color based on your requirement. Here you can just control the hue of it, and the tones and shades can be controlled using this one. Can you see here? So this way, if I'm looking for a green color, I can just set it, make it as green. Can you see how the green color is being imparted into the space? I can do that for any colors based on the requirement. Or if you are looking for a specific color and you have an X value of it, you can even type in the X value here, you will precisely get it. Or if you are aware of the RGB value of the specific color, you can also type in the RGB value too. So this is how you should be able to change the color either using the swatch or using the color temperature. The fourth parameter here is your brightness of the light. See, when it comes to brightness in this tool, you could commonly notice that it is always in terms of percentage. So don't worry, while addressing any lighting in the session, I'll just give you a recommended range. You can use that as an initial start, and based on the output, you can go beyond this range and edit it, make it precise to your requirement. So that way, when it comes to the brightness of a rectangular or a circular lighting, my personal recommendation is to set anywhere between 300 to maximum 700. Only in some rare cases, and you should already be aware, as you increase the brightness, the intensity of the light increases. Can you see, before it was 350, now I made it as 1800. The impact of this lighting will be max, and if you decrease it, its impact will be low. The fifth property here is your area light scattering angle. It is nothing but, see, if you place any rectangle lighting in space, in default, the impact of this lighting will be observed not only in the floor where it is focusing on, right? It will also create its impact on the wall which are adjacent to it, right? So that way, if you notice, I can see the impact of this lighting on this wall, on this wall, on the floor, and if there is any wall on the right hand side to it, I could also see its impact to an extent. Not only that, I could also see the impact of this lighting in these cases too, which means an impact of a specific rectangular or a circular lighting will be created almost to about 270 degree in its projection, correct? What if you want to make this rectangle lighting as a focus light? Instead of just diverging in all these angles for about 270 degrees, what if you want to make it focused only on a specific spot? That is exactly what your area light scattering is. In default, it will be 90. 90 means emit light throughout its surrounding, like how a normal light would behave. But if you want to make it focus, just lower the slider. And you will see, as you lower the slider, can you see? The triangle is precisely converging. Can you see the dotted rectangular is precisely converging to a point where it will look like a cube, right? Which means now the impact of this lighting will majorly be seen onto the surface where the lighting is being formed. So I'll just toggle on the preview window and you will see the difference. Can you see how the impact of that lighting was? Before it was falling onto all nearby surfaces, now it is acting like a focus light, right? So this is what your area light scattering is. If you like to converge or diverge the focal point of a rectangular or circular lighting, you can use that. And the sixth property of your rectangle lighting here is your height, using which you can control the height of the lighting. You can manually control using the slider here, or on the right hand side you can specifically type in the height based on your requirement. Okay, the maximum height of this lighting will typically be your ceiling height. It can't be extended beyond the ceiling height of your project. Or if you like to control the height of the lighting manually, you can just select that lighting, and once the lighting is selected, can you see the movement toggle here, using which you can move this lighting on any of the 3 axes. So if I want to move it on the left, if I want to move it on the right, if I want to move it on the Z axis, I can precisely do that too. Okay, so using the toggle also you can control the height and position, or if you go to your plan view, you could also just drag and manually move the position too. Or if you want to precisely move this lighting, you can just select the lighting like I addressed in all your previous onboarding session. If you select something, it will precisely show you with respective clearance distance. By editing the clearance distance, the light will precisely move to the specific spot. Can you see here? And apart from that, if you like to control the dimension, the length and width of this lighting, you can control it using this property. Can you see here? The length and width, using which you can manually control the length and manually control the width. You can control it using the slider like what I'm doing now. If not, you can precisely type in the length and width here. What if I want to colloquially control the dimension, not using the length and width? That is also feasible. In your plan view, if you select this lighting, you can see the pick points on all the 4 sides, right? You can also use it to colloquially or intuitively control your lighting too, just like how you would control a dimension of a generic rectangle in a tool. And now you might be wondering, what about the tiltage? Right now it is only focusing on one specific axis, right? What if I want to rotate the slide? You could do that as well. For that, on the right hand side you have something called I-10 angle, right? You have your front view and side view of the specific lighting, using which you can click on this orange dot and you can manually control the rotation either on this axis, or if you go to the side view of the lighting and click on the same pick point, you could rotate it on this axis. Can you see here? Or if you want, you can even specify the angle of rotation on any of the sides too. So this way, using the parameter, you can control the tiltage of the light. If you like to do it much more intuitively using the toggle, that is also feasible. Can you see, in addition to your axis toggle here, you will also see the rotation toggle, right? Using which you can rotate it on any specific axis according to your requirement. So this is what your rectangle lighting and its respective properties are. Similar properties applies for your circular lighting too, because like I said, rectangular and circular lighting are almost the same. Only difference is the geometry. Okay, if it is a rectangle lighting, in its property you have length and width, and since it is a circular lighting, in your property you have something called radius, using which you can control the size of it. That's it. That's the only difference here. So now let's just focus on your third type of lighting here, which is your omni lighting. Omni lighting is nothing but your typical spherical lighting in a form of sphere. So if you just click it, place it in your project, and here can you see, this is how an omni lighting will look. And generally professionals use this omni lighting for 2 purposes. One is if there is a circular lighting fixture in your design or your project, and if you like to create that effect where the light is being radiated from that light source, in those cases people will be using this omni lighting because it is spherical in nature. A best example is for this pendant lighting. So in my case here, if I would like to create a glow on the inner side of this pendant lighting as if the light is turned on, I could use this omni lighting. I could go to the plan, I could precisely place it on top of this pendant lighting, and here can you see, I can see the pendant lighting, right? If not, you can even go to your ceiling plan, you can precisely see the pendant lighting which is placed here. And once it is placed, I could just go to the perspective view and I could control the height of it. Can you see how I was able to position the lighting here? I was not directly positioning the lighting in the 3D view. I got to my 2D view floor plan. I positioned my X and Y in that way based on the lighting fixture overlay, and then I got inside my perspective view to control the lighting, right? So this is the way I would personally recommend to position your lighting precisely. The second and one of the effective way which many professionals will use your omni lighting is as a secondary sun. And yes, you heard it right, omni lighting can be used as a secondary sun. But before that, you need to know how we can control the actual sun here. For that, just go to your floor plan, zoom out, and here can you see this icon? This is what your sun is. Okay, so in my actual viewport here, my sun is positioned in this point. If I want, I could control the rotation of the sun by clicking it, dragging, and I could position it according to my preference here. And not only that, you would notice right now the sun is focusing at the center of my floor plan. What if I want my sun to focus at the center of my kitchen? In that case, I can just pick my focal point of the sun, I could drag it and move it based on my requirement. And now the sun will pivot around that focal point. Can you see here? Okay, so this way I should be able to control the focal and the rotation of the sun. But one of the disadvantage of using your sun as the only natural lighting source is its quantity, right? Like I said, sun is just universal. It is just one single element which will be there for the entire project, right? So if I'm taking a render for this kitchen here, I can place the sun this way so that natural lighting from the sun will penetrate inside this opening and it will illuminate the space. The reason is because natural lighting plays a very crucial role when it comes to photorealistic output. So incorporating your natural lighting is one of the important factors for your final output. But what if I'm taking another render at a different spot? In that case, then I have to again come here and position it accordingly, and I have to take photos. Or what if I want my sun near my opening here? That is not at all feasible, right? Because sun, since it is just one single entity, it can only revolve around a specific axis. You can't just place it outside the window or near your window. Those things can't be done using your natural sun. And obviously you can't have multiple suns at a time. And since your sun has all these disadvantages, professionals will use your omni lighting as a secondary sun to create the same kind of an impact what your natural lighting would do. Okay, so for that same process, just place it outside your window. And just like your sun, this is also spherical in nature, right? So this will precisely fit the geometry capability of a sun too. And not only that, I can just select it in the property of the omni lighting. At the last, I have a specific property named radius, using which I can control the size of the omni lighting, right? So that way I can increase the size of the lighting here, because it's going to act like a secondary lighting, so the size need to be larger. It need to compete with the sun, right? So I can just increase the size, just like your other lighting. I have the brightness settings for the omni lighting too. I can increase it. That way I could literally make it act like a secondary sun. The great advantage of using this as a secondary sun is you don't have any disadvantages what we addressed exactly with the sun. I can just use this omni lighting as a secondary sun just outside my opening here, so its impact will be much more precise. Or if you want, I could even press Ctrl C. Ctrl C is nothing but your duplicate, right? So if you just select any lighting, it will open up a floating window, right? This floating window will have some important tools which you need to edit that specific selected component. And that one of the tool is your duplicate. Shortcut is Ctrl C. That way I can duplicate the specific light and position outside of each and every opening there. So it feels like as if the sun is present outside of each and every opening. So to that precision, you'll be able to impart natural lighting in your scene if you are using your omni lighting as a secondary sun. All these advantages can't be attained using your actual sun. So this is where your second usability of your omni lighting comes in, which is a very professional usability using it as a secondary sun. And apart from that, you just select any omni lighting. You have your status here, using which you can turn on or turn off, exactly like what we addressed in your rectangular and circular lighting. You have an option to control the color temperature, or if you want to control using the swatch, that is also feasible. And brightness is also there. As you increase the brightness, its impact will be higher. So if you personally ask me, if you are using omni lighting as a part of your lighting fixture, in those cases a brightness of 10 to maximum about 30 or 35 is more than enough. But if you are using your omni lighting as a secondary sun, on most cases it is better that you just increase it to 2000. 2000 is the maximum intensity of it. You can make it. In some cases you might even reduce it to 1000 or 1500 or so, depending on the requirement and number of secondary suns which are present in your project. Apart from that, you could control the height of your omni lighting too. So can you see here, this is what the omni lighting here is. I could control the height using this. Apart from that, you can control the size using the radius too. So these are all the properties using which you can control the nature of a omni lighting. So now let's just focus on your fourth type of lighting, which is your spotlight. So if you just click it and place it in your project, this is how your spotlight would look. You will see many concentric circles here. If you just go to your perspective view, can you see this is what your spotlight here is? And you should already be aware that spotlight is actually a design lighting, not an ambient lighting. So for all the lightings what we addressed, rectangular, circular and omni, all these are ambient lighting. These are all the lightings which we use generally to enhance your ambience. In this, omni lighting will act like an ambient lighting and as a design lighting. But when it comes to spotlight, it is a typical design lighting. The main reason is because spotlight has a tendency to create a harsh or a sharp shadow in your scene, which is generally not recommended by any professional. So spotlight is always used as a design lighting for your project. So if you just select the spotlight, on the right hand side will show you its properties. Majority of the property is almost similar to what we addressed here. Your status, lighting color, whether you can control it using color temperature or using swatch, the brightness of the spotlight. And here when it comes to the brightness of the spotlight, it is actually tough to define a specific value. That is because the brightness of the spotlight majorly depends on the area where the spotlight is placed and the number of spotlights which are present in that specific area. So this is what when it comes to your brightness of your spotlight. And apart from that, you have your height, using which you can control the height of the lighting. You can even control the tiltage using this height and view window here. Can you see? Using which I can tilt it either on this axis if I'm in the front view. If I go to side view, I can tilt it vertically opposite. I can either do this manually by picking this orange dot, or I can even specifically mention the angle of rotation too. Or like I addressed for your rectangle lighting, you can also use this toggle to position it or to rotate in any specific axis. And so far, all the setting what we address for the spotlight is something that is common for all the lightings, right? And now we're going to address some properties which are specific for your spotlighting. In this, one of the property is your soft shadows. The soft shadow parameter is something that you can only notice in your spotlight, not in any other lightings. So that's why for your spotlight, you have an option to control the softness of the shadow. Okay, so can you see I can make it sharp, or I can even make it soft too. There isn't any personal recommendation here when it comes to softness of the shadow. It is always better that you maintain the midpoint here, or in some cases it's better that you move somewhat towards sharp. The second property here is your close attenuation and long range attenuation. See, these two are very unique property for your spotlights. So for that, first you need to understand what the spot area and attenuation is. Spot area is nothing but the region where the light from your spotlight directly falls onto a surface, where the impact of the light will be maximum and will be on point. This is what your spot area is. In this reference image, can you see here the center spot area where it is completely looking white? That is what your spot area is. And if you notice, after the spot area, can you see a region where the light is actually dispersing and merging with the surrounding, right? It is just blending with the surrounding. That is what your attenuation zone is. So if you take any spotlight, you will see this two regions there. One is your spot area where the light directly falls onto a surface. Second one will be the attenuation zone where that light disperses with the surrounding. In NAADI, in your real-time rendering window, you can precisely control the area of your spot and area of your attenuation zone. Can you see here? So this is what your spot area is, which is your central circle where the impact of the light will be direct. Can you see? And then comes, you can control the area of the spot. Can you see here? As you increase the radius, decrease the radius, it will impact. Then comes in the attenuation zone, which is nothing but where the light dispersion ends. So once the spot area is completed, your light dispersion starts in and it will blend with the surrounding, and once it has reached to this point, it will completely be dispersed with your surroundings. So this is what your attenuation zone is, which is your secondary circle. Can you see? You can control its radius too. So this is what your spot area and attenuation zone for your spotlight here is. So now let's just focus on to the fifth type of lighting, which is your globe light. Globe light is nothing but your tubular light. Can you see here? A light which is tubular in form. And if you look at the property of this globe light, it is exactly similar like your other lightings. Status, color, brightness, height control, rotation, height. You could control the length of the tube and radius of the tube as well, since it is tubular in nature. So I could control what should be the length here using the slider, or I could precisely type in the length of this glow stick tube, or I could even control the radius of this tube. Can you see here? And now you might be wondering, where will I be using this glow stick or tubular light? See, conventionally in your rendering engines, if you want to place a cove lighting or a skirting lighting or your wall and mount lighting, you will be using a rectangle lighting as a strip light, correct? You can use this glow stick in all those strip light requirements. Okay, anyways in NAADI you don't have a requirement for it because you would have already added cove lighting in your ceiling editor. For the wall panel you would have added it in your wall editor. For your skirting lighting it would have already been addressed in your base and mount lighting. And for the wall units here, you would have already added it in your wall and mount lighting as well, right? And for all the internals of your cabinets, you would have already added your strip lighting while designing the internal of the cabinet. So the need for adding a strip lighting in your real-time rendering is extremely minimal when it comes to NAADI. But despite that, if there are some requirements, let's just say that I want to add a countertop lighting. I want to add a strip light just underneath my countertop. In those cases, it is not feasible during your modeling, right? In that case, I can add it here. So I could precisely control it. I can move here. I could rotate it based on the requirement. And I could precisely position it in my plan view. Okay. Can you see here if I'm placing the lighting here? When it comes to X and Y position, I'm just doing it in the floor plan. And once this position is addressed, now I'll go to the perspective view to control the height, which is the Z axis. So that way I could precisely position it based on the requirement. Can you see here? That's it. Your strip light for this countertop is added. Now I could follow the same process to add another strip light for this extent, this, and so. So this is how you should be able to add a strip lighting manually in your real-time rendering. So this is what your fifth type of lighting, which is your globe lighting. And then comes in your last type of lighting, which is your IES lighting. And here you would have noticed, can you see, you have different IES dispersion patterns, right? Yes, you don't even need to worry about importing your own IES lighting. It is already available here. All you need to do is just select and add it in your project. As simple as that. Can you see here? So this is what when it comes to your IES lighting, and the property of the IES lighting is exactly same as your previous lighting here. So this is what when it comes to your element 1, which is lighting in your real-time rendering. So with this, your section 1 of the day 5 professional course is completed.